Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale here in Abuja. So we are back on the program tonight and we're bringing you some of your top stories. We'll begin tonight with what we've been tracking for you over the last weeks. The federal government and the Nigerian Labour, they've been meeting, but it does look like there hasn't been some kind of way forward. 3 times now, the Labour had rejected federal government's offer and their proposal, and they said the federal government is unserious in the manner and approach they have gone about that negotiation. And today, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have declared a nationwide strike beginning from Monday, the 3rd of June 2024, over the tripartite committee's inability to agree on a new minimum wage and a hike in electricity tariff.
If you could remember, we had a meeting, a National Executive Council meeting of the NLC as well as the TUC, where we were further charged that the leadership should take charge and will take all actions to call government to order at the end of the expiration of the ultimatum. Today is 31st of May 2024. And this night, the ultimatum expires. So, gentlemen of the press, we are hereby declaring the commencement of a nationwide industrial action, a nationwide strike, effective from Monday, June 3rd, 2024. And this strike shall be indefinite. And this strike shall be on until we have a new national minimum wage, until government is serious and also the tariff increment in electricity is reversed.
This doesn't look good anyways, because what it means is that if the organized labor decline in an indefinite nationwide strike, it means one thing. It's going to be some kind of shutdown in aspect of our economy and our livelihoods. It doesn't look good at all. And I hope that somebody is going to be doing something. Before we get into biting too hard on some of our major issues tonight, I will serve you with your political roundup story, but let me let you know that we will dig deep into the various issues confronting the nation, as much as President Bola Tinubu said he has performed and what he has done in keeping to the promises made, the campaign promises made, before he was sworn into office. So you join me on this. I have a very eminent and prominent Nigerian, a scholar of high esteem, that will be discussing these issues with us. And of course, on the other half of the program, we will be looking at the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, the Tinubu student loan scheme that has been launched. We understand that about 6,000 or so applicants already in the first few days that was launched. How can you benefit? If you want to apply for it, now is the opportunity to gain 1 or 2 information about that scheme. All of this we have planned for you tonight, everyone. Sit tight. First, these are your political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu has tasked state governments to prioritize the needs of local communities by ensuring accountability and effectiveness in the administration of local governments. The president made these remarks at a meeting with the leadership of the Arewa Consultative Forum at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The president appealed for national unity and emphasized the need to utilize education as a tool in nation building.
This country reflected our diversity. As long as we are together, and we have to be together.
President Bola Tinubu says the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASINI, will lead Nigeria's revolution in the technological innovation sector as it continues its groundbreaking interventions in critical areas beneficial to the growth of the country. Represented by the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, at the commissioning ceremony of the agency's Compressed Natural Gas Reverse Engineering Training, Filling and Conversion Center in Abuja. President says there is no going back on his gas initiatives, which is targeted at making life more comfortable for Nigerians.
This is the federal agency that has a mandate and a platform to drive the science, engineering, and industrial efforts of the federal government of Nigeria.
The Cross River State Governor, Bassey Otu, has promised to ensure that the state's economy will lay down foundation set in his first year in office. In a statewide address, Governor Otu reflected on his administration's accomplishments in key sectors and announced his administration has laid a solid foundation for a thriving economy in the state. Amidst the rising cost of living, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress in Imo State, Mr. Uche Nwosu, is asking President Bola Tinubu to revisit the issue of electricity tariff in the interest of the masses. Addressing a news conference in Abuja on the state of the nation, Mr. Nwosu says the increase in electricity tariff is inflicting untold hardship on many Nigerian businesses. Mr. Nwosu, however, applauds President Tinubu on the new national anthem. To Rivers State, where Ijaw People's Forum has warned political detractors to stay clear of Governor Siminalayi Fubara's government. The group made this known during a press briefing in Port Harcourt, which was attended by stakeholders from the Ijaw-speaking parts of the oil-rich state. Reading communique to journalists, the leader of the group, Ms. Nkoi Briggs, warned fellow Ijaw people to resist any attempt to be used against the governor. The Abia State Governor has placed a 25 million naira bounty on the killers of 5 soldiers in the Aba area of the state and also condoled with the Chief of Army Staff, Tyree Lagbaja, over the incident. The gunmen on Thursday stormed the military unit at Obikabia Junction, Agbo Hill area, and also burnt the unit as well as a patrol van parked in the unit. Some soldiers were alleged to have escaped the attack by the gunmen.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So let's get to it, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to go back to some of those statistics and those information we brought to you, and we're looking at it from another perspective, of course, giving you a sense. I mean, if you have a president for the last 1 year, as a citizen, either you voted for him or you did not, you should have a say, isn't it, about how the government is being run, how the nation is being run, and perhaps the future of our nation. I said yesterday, this is the 25% of the 4 year of President Bola Tinubu. What are the promises he made? What are the things that he said he will do? What has he done? And yesterday, when the president was meeting elders in the north of the Arawa Consultative Forum, he said something, of course, and this is not the first time he's saying it, but let me remind you what the president said about those who are found wanting or not performing in his cabinet. This is what he said.
Our strength and opportunity is in our population. One thing I need to really appeal for. I want to thank so many of my colleagues in the cabinet. Yes, I'm the boss, I chose them. I can relieve them of their duty anytime I feel they are failing. But we are together talking about Nigeria.
All right. And there are those who will say the president, not only anytime you want, some are even saying now, because it is an urgency of the time because of the situation of the country, some of which I will be showing you in a short while. I'm being joined by Dr. Hussein Abdul, who is a governance, development, and humanitarian specialist and a scholar. He joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
I think a good way for us to begin is to remind everyone, where did we start from? What are the promises that this government made? And It was an 80-page document titled The Renewed Hope Agenda. But look at it. Under national security, they made it clear the things they said they would do. Creation of anti-terrorist battalions, upgrade of tactical communication and logistics, upgrade of a weapon system. In fact, they talked about how much they will reform and reposition the Nigerian police. They said they will put more boots on the ground. They will employ more police officers. They also talked about the economy, how 10% of GDP growth based on the 2021 World Bank data is what they are targeting, which came out very strong for me. And later on, we'll look at how much of GDP growth we've seen in the last year. But again, under the economy, you look at some of the things that they said they would do. We started seeing that there's a civil service reform and reduction of the cost of governance. Your Oronsaya report. But how far has that come, Dr. Abdul? Critical economic levers, housing, agriculture, oil and gas, digital economy, sports, infrastructure. These are very critical. They said they will review a whole lot of things. It looks to me that the government or the Bola Tinubu as a candidate wanted to do a lot of reforms. He saw a lot of loopholes and gaps in there. He had the intention, and these are documents. This is a summary of the document that they had earlier on. So you look at it. They said they were going to do a lot of things. Estimated billing, they said they are going to eliminate it. They're going to do a whole lot of stuff as regarding those drivers of the economy. Human capital development, institute a pilot student loan regime. But tonight, I'll be talking to the managing director of the NEL Fund. He's already started. They say a lot of people have now applied for it. Let's go further to look at some of the things that they said they will do. Implementation of a mandatory health insurance scheme to cover at least 40% of the population within 2 years. We have a young man who is in charge of that, and Ali Pate. He's the Minister of Health. And Alausa is supporting him there. But let's look at what we have right now. This is the bone of contention, Dr. Abdul. Petrol price. This was what it was before 1 year ago. This is what it is right now. You look at it, it's almost triple or over triple. Diesel price, 800 over 800 naira last time. Is over 1,000 naira, almost 1,500 now. Look at food inflation, 24%. 40%. That is what we have on food inflation. What about the inflation itself? This is what we get. 22% was what we had, 33% now. Foreign reserves, 35%, is depleted by 3 billion. Exchange rate, 461. 1,000, over 1,400 as of today. Public debt, this is what we had. It's increased now. They borrowed more money in the last 1 year. Oil production, it has somewhat increased from 1.18 million averagely per day to 1.28 million. And interest rate, this is a major problem for this government. They try, the fiscal and the monetary policies, try to make sure that things, flotation of the economy, unification of the naira, but this is where we are. 18% then, 26% now. GDP growth rate. Don't forget what they said they will do. They said 10%. That's the estimation. But now, this is what we have, 2.98%. But, Doc, in your own general analysis of things, because the fundamentals of all of this in governance is that if you say you will do something, the people, isn't it, are supposed to be at the center of it. But are the people who are at the receiving end feeling better now than Bola Tinubu met them 1 year ago? Surely
the people are not feeling better, and I don't think that the government is even pretending about it. On several occasions, we've had the president and even the ministers acknowledging the difficulty of the situation in the country and recognizing that things are tough, but what they want to see is that is a toughness that will probably generate a better condition for the people. But Nigerians are hard done on this kind of situation and history. Nigeria has had a long-standing history with a crisis of economy, and that when things go down, they never come back, never. And that's the history, and that is a very significant challenge. I think the government did not start on a strong note. The government took some very quick decisions that probably you could describe as boomerang. And some of the statistics, whether you are talking about GDP growth or you're talking about the inflation, whether you're talking about food inflation, you're talking about interest rate, they all have to do with strategic decisions that the government had taken immediately after it took over. And what we are seeing is drastic effort to get out of that mess that have
occurred. Could it be lack of preparation to get into office?
I think it is not simply lack of preparation. I think it's their preparation, the government. Sometimes some of these things operate at the level of ideology. Look, you had a previous government that had one multiple exchange rate regime, which was also subjected to different levels of abuses. And there was a massive outcry by Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians on the street, and also experts on that. And so the government came in with an intention to say, people have been complaining about this matter, we need to deal with it. The second was subsidy. And there have been a whole contention around subsidy and also allegations of corruption associated with that subsidy regime. And then the immediate thing you think about as a new government is, oh, we want to give a very strong impressions. One, to citizens, that we will take some drastic action that will yield quick result. And two, to our investors and our friends who may actually come in, who are looking at our economy and are looking for opportunity. And therefore, we want to show them that we're serious and therefore we are opening up the economy for them. But unfortunately, that's just one side of the story. The side of the story that you think you can attract investors, and the side of the story that has to do with the lives, the social economic lives of the people. So you remove subsidy on petroleum product. One, you are not refining locally. You only do, practically what we're doing was trade by barter. You sell crude, you buy refined product into the country. And that's basically what you are doing. So you remove subsidy on petroleum product, and then you liberalize the foreign exchange regime. So when you do that, you know that your economy is at its lowest ebb, is weak, and therefore your national currency is practically impossible to compete with the much bigger currencies out there, like dollar, pounds, euro. It can't compete. And therefore, the value of Naira began to crash. And so the more the value of Naira began to crash, the more you actually spend to import these refined products. So as you import in refined product, they come at a very much higher prices. And therefore, even though you have removed subsidy in the petroleum product, you are not able to cope with the escalation in the prices of the product so much that you actually have to maintain a particular price. As high as it is, you still have to maintain and subsidize it. Of course, we'll be hearing narrative that there is no subsidy and all that at the moment, but the reality is that it does not fit the arithmetics of economics. To understand the foreign exchange, understand what we are importing in and the rate at which we are importing, and still say there is no subsidy. It's just a basic statistics or arithmetic in economics.
It's not adding up.
It's not adding up.
Because the prices will undulate.
Absolutely.
The market forces, like the government said, will determine the prices.
The prices.
The prices are just stagnant.
Are just stagnant. And they are stagnant, and people say you are subsidizing, and the government say we are not subsidizing.
So someone is not telling us something.
So someone is not saying something somehow. And that's the same thing we had with the previous government, where at the point they said they've removed subsidy, and then at the point they said there is no more subsidy, and then months later we are dealing with
lack of transparency. And I see in other climes, Dr. Abdul, in the UK particularly.
Yes.
We saw when a prime minister, for example, came out and said we're going to exit the EU.
Yes.
And he saw that he couldn't midwife that process successfully. At the end of the day, he stepped aside. He thought that he was unable to do it.
Yes.
I mean, when you see government over the years are saying one thing and they are doing the other, and they are not transparent, the trust between the people, that gap is being widened by the day.
Yes.
And I mean, an irrational person will know that the people in government are not purely saying the truth.
They're not saying the truth. And it's always very important to be transparent with citizens and be very clear around some of those things. And you communicate very, very well with people. People understand the social economic context of globally. The dynamics are quite huge. Things are not adding up and they are not shaping up. So when you don't communicate, you create room for some of those stories that you hear around. And by the time you come off, people will say, we told you. So Nigeria, for instance, you can best compare Nigerian situation with what you are dealing with in Argentina, for instance. Government that came up with
a bad situation.
Which is a very bad situation. Took off the same kind of directions in terms of social economic policies to deal with what probably they thought was the malgovernance of the economy of the previous.
And are those who
previous
think that the Bretton Woods institutions are driving our local economic indices or the direction, our policy directions, which is saddening, isn't it? Because, Doc, I will show you the interpretation of those decisions and the policy of government. Because when we imagine, when Atiku Abubakar came out and said, this government is just doing a trial by error economics. Because the dollar to the naira crashed up to less than 1,000. All of a sudden, for the last 2 or 3 weeks that I understand, it's gone back to its original position, which is about 1,400. So you see, it does look like the government is trying. There's error, they're going back and forth and all of that. But I imagine that you get the best hands, isn't it, to run the biggest of the experts and the most knowledgeable persons to man the technical areas. Do you think that this government had those who can run this government properly?
I do believe that there are some very good hands in the government. I do believe that, but as much as I also believe that there are not so good hands as well in the government, my sense actually is that in terms of the management of the economy, it is not simply around trial by error. I think there is a consistency in terms of their belief. It's an ideological thing, and that's how that's the realm. It's about an embrace of a neoliberal economic framework, believing that market forces is a more rational way of distributions, and therefore if you subject the economy to the forces of demand and supply, it could actually find its own equilibrium. But the realities of economics all over does not speak to this, even in the most advanced capitalist economics. The book I'm reading currently by Stiglitz, one of the most renowned American economists who was an advisor of the World Bank, and he titled it The Road to Freedom. He said economics and good society. He's one of the most renowned critics of neoliberal economy and was coming from the from the IMF and the World Bank institutions. So these people give you advice, but they could make sense to you in terms of their analysis, but it does not suit the economic pattern, the consumer behaviors in your own context, and therefore it doesn't work.
But look, I showed you some of the intentions of these of the Tinubu-led government. When it was a candidate, Tinubu, he had an 80-page document. His intentions are clear. The things that he said he wanted to do, but intentions are one thing, and the actions are another thing. But what do you make of what is happening? I'm going to show you what the bottom line is. Because in all of the English language and in all of the technical jargons that anyone may speak, in the technicality of governance and economics, the bottom line is the food on the table.
Absolutely.
And the money in the pocket. I'm going to show you the prices of commodities. And that is very fundamental, isn't it? Because the biggest and the greatest of the population of the people, if they are in pain, and the government has said, look, what we are doing right now is going to be like the pain of childbearing, which at the end of the day, you will start laughing.
You remember Obasanjo told us, Obasanjo mentioned this. He said, look, reforms are difficult and they're hard. That is more like a Yoruba tribal mark. That when you are carving it, it can be very painful and bloody, but at the end of the day, you look beautiful. He used that analogy. The second analogy Obasanjo used is that, look, that we cannot eat omelette without breaking the egg. But the truth about it is that after all this, where are we? We saw it in 1986 when Babangida introduced the structural adjustment program. And the whole idea was that, look, we cut costs in these areas, we disinvest in this area, and what did we get at the end of the day? We went through a massive deindustrialization that this country is yet to recover from. And that's the challenge.
And so you look at it. Throw me the prices of commodity. So, Doc, it's a summary of the situation, the action and the inaction of this government. Either they were prepared, or they had good intentions, or they are taking the right action, or they have the right drivers for this economy or this government. These are the results right now. And those who say, give the government a chance. We gave government a chance in the last few years. Our economics came and said, our economy is 20 years backward because Buhari government ran the economy aground. And some of us have said, we will not give any government a chance any longer. We will speak truth to power to ensure that we will not find our country under. Look at what is happening, Prof. Bread, 900 naira. That is perhaps one commodity an average Nigerian will consume.
Yes.
1,600 naira. That is what it is today.
Yeah.
1 year ago it was 900. And look at all of the commodities. These are average things.
Food inflation is massive, and
40%.
And it has a very huge implications on food security, because food security is not just the availability. It's also about affordability. And so basically, if people are not affording this, it's a major issue. And the Nigerian government is very much aware of it, particularly for those of us who work in this sector. We knew what the challenges are. The crisis of food security is huge. And the major drivers, one of the major drivers is the escalating cost of food. And that itself is driven by two major decisions. One, the decision to remove subsidy on petroleum products. And secondly, the decision to liberalize the foreign exchange and subject it to the forces of demand and supply. And today, the Naira is not able to cope, because you see, the strength of your local currency is determined by the extent of your production and export. So if you are not producing, you are not exporting, Nigeria is a hugely import-driven economy.
So what's in the case, Dr. Abdul, the purchasing power of the average person has drastically been messed up.
Yeah.
Even if you have the money, you are earning so much, it means almost next to nothing, because the prices of what you get in the market has been messed up. And so that's where we are today. And when you hear the president, for example, saying, look, I will fire, and the members of his party had come to this program to say, don't wait to fire some of these people who are not performing. Fire them now. And I asked you earlier today, you found it difficult to even get 10 performing.
Yeah, I did. I found it difficult.
You only got 8.
I got 8.
And these are your 8.
These are my 8. I couldn't get.
How did you come about some of these guys? We have just a few minutes.
So I struggled. And like I told you in my chat with you, I said, I scored them, the maximum score I have is 35% over 100.
Over 100.
Over 100.
For this guy.
So even for this guy, Nelson Wike, FCT minister, yes, we have seen certain level of actions around the FCT. We've seen a lot of road constructions here and there. And there are responses, but we can question some of those areas where this work is being done. What is being done in the more rural part of FCT and other. There are questions around that. Umahi, we've seen he's gone around some of the major federal government roads and has had deadline. He's met with different construction companies that are involved in that process. And then we have the coastal road. Of course, there are a lot of questions around that, the Lagos-Calabar, and there's a lot of questions, but that's for another...
A lot of pushback.
Another pushback.
Not even only that, some of the other projects, there are pushback.
Yes, so there's a lot of conversation there, whether it's going to be concrete road or bitumen or whatever, that discussion is still going on, but you have a minister who is engaging, who is having a conversation, sometimes controversial, but at least there's an action taking place there. The Minister of Interior been quite remarkable, particularly in terms of how he managed the international passport issues. Very recently, I renewed my international passport, and thanks to the team at the Gwagwalada unit, I got it within 24 hours. I don't know what it has to do with me, but I know that
so it's true that they say that he is one of the star boys.
Yes.
They call Wike a star boy, call Bumiodo a star boy of this government.
Yeah, he is. I got my passport in 24 hours. Even for personal reason, I could actually say that. Sabi Abdullahi, yes, quite the whole conversation.
Minister of State for that
Minister of State for Agriculture.
He got on your list.
Yeah, he got on my list because of the level of engagement. I work in the development sector, and I see him having conversation with us. He's leading in the engagement on food security. He's leading engagement on nutrition, and that's quite commendable on his side. Right. The Minister of Health, ordinarily supposed to be one of the star, one of the technical people in this government. It's been a struggle, to be honest. But again, the whole idea, you could see when you engage in conversation, you could see clear intention, you could see clear strategy. But yes, rolling that out can be a bit challenging. But he's trying in terms of pulling resources together, in terms of defining common agenda for development partners. I think he's been doing quite well. The
Attorney General and the Minister of Justice.
And the Minister of Justice. I think his decision to go to Supreme Court in terms of local government autonomy was for me a major mark.
It's true with some Nigerians who don't want the old national anthem brought back. Because how can you bring a national anthem that was composed, written by foreigners, as against the one written by Nigerians?
That's a different...
He said no, it shouldn't happen.
Yes, exactly. So I think for me, it's also one of the stars of this government. It's calm, it's nuanced, and even if you look at the work being done at the level of EFCC, it can also be very encouraging because that agency also supervises the EFCC. Yusuf Tuga, yes, my major concern, I found it very difficult to do the rating. One, I didn't see ambassadors been appointed for so far, and I actually think that's the job of the president, but he has a position to advise. But I've seen certain level of engagement in terms of UN, in terms of the coordination in the African Union, the engagement with the ECOWAS, and he's also positioned in terms of our engagement in terms of Israeli-Palestinian war going on at the moment, and I think those are good action that he's taken. He has brought back Nigeria into those kind of international conversations. Yeah.
And finally, Festus
Finally, my friend Festus Kemo, aviation. Yeah, there have been some hot airs on the aviation industry. Yes, infrastructurally, a lot still needs to be done, but I think you see passion, you see energy, you see drive. Sometimes those things need to be rewarded. Even if there is nothing concrete you are seeing on ground, the fact that the person is engaging and those conversations are taking place is quite good.
Doc, we are totally out of time.
Yes.
But for you, as far as you're concerned, these guys don't have any business to be in this cabinet.
Honestly,
the last 1 year,
I honestly don't think
they've not performed.
They don't have. But soon for me, innovation and digital economy. That's the in thing. That's the main driver.
He has a fantastic document, but I'm surprised that you're not seeing anything just yet.
I'm not seeing that just yet. If you say you are leading on innovation, you are a major key to the government of.
So you are expecting us to see tangible.
I'm trying to see. I'm expecting to see tangible, and I'm not seeing that. I haven't. I walked around. I tried to check with the Minister of for State for gas resources. I struggled. Yeah. I know how we are struggling with it. I can't get that.
A lot of people will also be disappointed with with the former governor of Osun State.
I think it's just his energy is still in Osun State. To be very honest, I'm sorry.
And the defense minister and tourism minister.
And the defense minister and tourism minister, I just can't. And that's actually I actually said defense ministers.
Yeah.
I didn't just say
the two of them.
The two of them. I can't see
Well, indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul. You've done an incredible job trying to make sense of it. It's difficult, isn't it?
It's extremely difficult.
Look, governance might be difficult, but it's about deliverables. If the people are not saying it, you are not doing it.
Yeah, if you are not saying it, you are not doing it. But you see, sometimes I'm not one of those people who actually want to see the tangibles. I actually want to see even the ideas.
Yeah.
I want to actually see a clear documentation and narrative.
Some kind of connection with the people.
Some of connections with the people.
All right.
And then we know that you are working hard to actually get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes those physical things don't really speak to the real issue.
Dr. Hussein Abdul, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Because we need to keep our eyes on the government activities. If the government is for the people, some of us who are in the media, our constitutional duty is to hold government accountable for the Nigerian people. Thank you so much for your thought there.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. We'll take a break, everyone. But when we come back, our attention will be on President Bola Tinubu's student loan scheme. Akintunde Sawyer, who is the managing director of the NEL Fund, will be telling us more about our scheme and how it will benefit you if you want to apply. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The attention is on President Bola Tinubu's agenda to allow those who cannot be able to fund their own education in tertiary institution to be able to get some assistance, and therefore there was a bill initially that has been now tweaked and signed into law. Recently, the president appointed a board to be chaired by a notable Nigerian banker and entrepreneur, Mr. Jim Ovia. Now, that board has been set up to be chaired by him, and the man to run the Nigerian Education Loan Fund is Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. He joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back here again.
Great. So the last time you were here, your title was different.
Yes.
A lot of things have changed since the last time. The bill was not signed into law, but it's now been signed. So a lot of things have changed, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So in the original bill, which was in fact signed on the 12th of June 2023, there were a number of things that weren't quite workable in terms of being able to give people loans. So there were limits like, $500,000 naira, 500,000 naira earning per household. If you earned over 500,000 naira, you couldn't get the loan. There were also some onerous conditions there, like you had to go and get guarantors who are people of notable and good standing in society to help you be able to get the loan or to guarantee that you would pay back, that's gone, because we saw that as an opportunity for graft and for holding a gun to people's heads. And besides, lots of the people who want this loan don't know people in that category. The other thing was that the original bill, or should I say the act that was there before, really didn't allow for us to provide upkeep to the applicants. It was only for school fees or for institutional charges. That's gone. So we can now provide upkeep as well. So it's actually looking very good.
Yeah. So it looks like maybe the president heard some of the conversation we had the last time.
Yeah.
Because when we were having the conversation, I wasn't quite comfortable with some of the things that were in that law, because I was reading it. I thought, great idea, but I made comparison actually with 3 other countries that give students opportunities to get loan to study. But I see that bill was somewhat very stringent in terms of the conditions. But let's get it straight and break it down. I'm excited that a lot of people are already, launching out to apply for this. How many applications have you gotten so far since you opened up?
Okay, so far we've had 60,000 plus registrations. In fact, it's
registration, not applications.
Registrations, not applications. For loans, we've had about 50% of that. So about 35,000 people have actually applied for loans. So it's about 50% of the registrations. There's a reason for that disconnect. So the registrations are people who've been able to access the site, go and set up an account, because we allow you to set up an account, username, password, and then you've got a dashboard that stays with you until the end of the process. The next step is the application for the loan itself. There's a little bit of a disconnect in that area because some of the institutions haven't provided complete and accurate data. So that's being resolved, and every day we're dealing with it. There are also some applicants who've had specific issues, with entering the right digits, the right data. It's alphanumeric, most of the verification codes that are required, and if you make a mistake, it doesn't go through. The great thing is that we've captured 60,000 people for sure who want this loan. We're going to work through the teething problems they have and then be able to enable them to actually apply for the loan.
Fantastic. For those who perhaps the application is still open, isn't it?
Oh, the application remains open.
Fantastic.
We've got lots
all year round.
All year round.
Absolutely.
We are starting this process, and we want to make sure that we catch as many people who need this loan as possible. That's what the president wants. The application is open.
Is your net unlimited?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's your catchment.
Oh.
And the opportunity, your banking, is it unlimited? Because
okay.
I'm imagining there's a cap on what you can give every year.
Okay, so there is a cap of sorts. So there are 1.8 million people in state-owned, when I say state, I mean federal and state-owned tertiary institutions. That's the capacity today in that academic space.
So it's only for state-owned institutions, not private-owned institutions. So imagine Edo State University and University of Nigeria in Nsukka, which is a federal university. So those are the kind of universities that can benefit, the student from that can benefit.
So the law currently, as it sits, says that those are the only types of institutions.
No private institutions.
No private at the moment. Now, there's a very good reason for that. Most of the types of students that we are trying to assist, trying to help, trying to capture, tend to attend non-private institutions. They're cheaper, they're less expensive. That's where most of the people that we want to help go. So as a blanket sort of catchment, those are the areas we want to focus on first. We want to help the people who need this loan the most first. Once we've done that, then of course the National Assembly and the president, who has expressed an interest in ensuring that everybody can apply for this, there probably is going to be an opportunity at some point in the future, I can't determine that, where the net is expanded to include private institutions.
Right. So now, let's get it straight. So for the benefit of those who are still thinking, I'm not aware, what's the website, don't get confused. So I've got a help for you. Just go to nelf.gov.ng. nelf.gov.ng. I have the website right for you over there on your screen, and you can just scroll up and scroll down. There is a portion for you to sign in. You get your dashboard. There is a process to apply and all of it, and all of the information that you need right there on that website. It is a Nigerian Education Loan Fund, and of course, you can get all of the information. They say it's more than a financial aid program. The Student Loan Initiative, support the federal government of Nigeria, is a beacon of hope for Nigerian students pursuing higher education. So give me a sense of now, what is the benchmark that you can get every year? So no matter what level you are, you can apply either 100 level or your final year.
Sure.
Is that right?
Absolutely. So as long as you are in a federal institution, a state institution, already in the institution, or you want to join the institution, the loan application is open to you. Clearly, if you're in your final year or midway through your final year and your fees have been paid, we can't help you in that instance. And we don't go retrospectively. We don't go backwards to go and provide loans for people who've already paid. But going forward, everyone who's in the institution or entering the institution is eligible to apply.
So tuition is one that you can pay for. What about hostel and accommodation?
Okay. So what we haven't done is broken it down into various components. What we've done is said, look, we will pay 100% of the institutional charges. So the institution has a number of charges which may include things like tuition at the state level. However, there are other charges outside of the institutional charges that students need. They need money for data, they need money for airtime,
for books, for handouts,
they need money for photocopying. All of that is captured in an upkeep allowance that we determine and provide to the individual.
What is the standard for the upkeep for an average student?
Well, we haven't figured out what the standard is. At the moment, what we've got is an algorithm that looks at where the institution is, the cost of living in that particular area. As you can imagine, if you're living in Akoka, the rental requirements in an area like that is very different to if you're in a place like Kafanchan, for example. You know, the costs are different. So we're trying to take an intelligent look at this and say, hey, look, this is what we think you might require.
The economics of it.
The economics of it, yes. So that we're not giving people a token that's not taking them anywhere. And we're not giving people the same amount in a rural setting as we're giving them in a more expensive.
But I imagine, Mr. Sawyer, that federal government institutions have some kind of a standard in the tuition and institutional charges. And you see faculty fees, departmental fees, this and that and blah, 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 that you all pay. So I'm glad that it covers all of that. If you say institutional fees, these are all institutional fees.
Correct.
It goes into the pocket of the institution.
Absolutely.
So I imagine the federal government fees are, they are almost standard in most of the federal institutions in terms of the tuition.
Well, you say almost standard, but remember that there are different courses. A student can be studying history or English, very different to if they're studying pharmacy or medicine, law, which has different requirements for input from the institution. There are greater charges in some courses. And by the way, some of these courses last for longer. Some are 3 years, some are 4 years, some are 5 years. We will cover, as long as they're applying on a yearly basis, we'll cover the entire institutional charges regardless of the course that the individual is studying.
Interesting. So when is the student expected to pay back?
Okay, so it's a loan. So there's certainly an expectation of payback. The law, which we have put guidelines around, requires the actual reporting of your status to begin 2 years after National Youth Service Corps. Notice I said reporting of your status. You're expected to come back to the NEL Fund to say, hey, look, 2 years have gone since I did my National Youth Service Corps. Now I'm in a position to begin to pay, or I'm not in a position to pay. As long as we get that reporting at regular intervals, we'll be able to determine who needs to pay and when. But the minimum time that we expect that sort of reporting back to us is 2 years after Youth Corps.
I mean, I'm just wondering and looking, by your accent, I imagine that you have some education outside of the country. Somewhere, not in the Americas, but somewhere in Europe or maybe Britain.
Accents can be a bit
deceptive.
Yeah, they can be deceptive. So
the reason why I'm dragging your leg is this. I'm looking at what my work, because you are at that stage, you're still trying out some of these things, and is a novel idea right here in Nigeria. We've not been used to that system. So I imagine that the social security status of a citizen might help. That way, you can be able to pull up what the person is owing, what a person is earning, because you cannot run away from your shadow. Because governments in those kind of crimes, your data basically is on your forehead. We can't see it, but it's just there because of your social security, which in Nigeria is your NIN.
Correct.
And I don't know if those are some of the data, because I'm imagining that somebody might just evaporate into the thin air after graduation. And some people, unfortunately, there are a huge number of them. You look at the unemployment rates in Nigeria, over 30%. So you look at a lot of them who may not get jobs after their NYSC.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of moratorium for such people?
Okay, so there is a moratorium. And if you recall, what I was trying to say earlier is that the reporting is 2 years after National Youth Service Corps. Reporting literally means reporting. It doesn't mean paying back. If an individual fails to secure a job 4 years after National Youth Service Corps, we are not going to go after them for the funds. What we're going to do is ask them to report to us regularly that they are not working, they are not earning. If they're earning, then there is a requirement to repay a percentage of what they've borrowed back on a monthly basis. In any event, the way that we have set this up is that if they go into employment, it is the employer who has an obligation to go and look, as you said, at the NIN, for example, to see whether there's a loan attached to that. If there's a loan attached to the NIN, the employer then has the obligation to report to NELFund that we've just employed this particular individual, we're paying them this much money, and this percentage is going to be remitted to NELFund every month.
All right. So the institutional fees that are being charged by the school, the fund goes straight from NELFund to the school, but the upkeep goes to the student.
That is exactly what happens. The fund for the institutional charges we pay directly to the institution. And what that does is that we provide the individual with evidence that we have given you the loan, the funds have gone directly to the institution. The institution is informed that on behalf of the individual and behalf of the loanee, the funds have come to you. So give them unfettered access to studying in that institution. The upkeep we pay directly, as you rightly said, to the individual.
Yeah.
They're the ones that need it. They're adults in most cases. They make decisions as to how they spend their funds.
Yeah.
The funds go straight to them so that they can look after themselves and support their education.
So the ages, there's a discrimination right now. The law says 40 years, you'll not be able to apply if you are over 40. But there is there a minimum age also, isn't it?
Well, there's a minimum age by law in which you can enter into a contract. Okay, so you have to be an adult to enter into a contract. So for example, if you're 16, you can't, it wouldn't be responsible lending for us to lend to a 16-year-old. But from the age of 18, you can enter into a contract with the NELFund and therefore be able to access the loan. The maximum age is put there, not by law, by our guidelines, because what we're trying to do is ensure that this fund is available as a loan to those who can maximally improve themselves, not professional students, not people who are doing a second or third degree, but by people who actually have a career ahead of them. They have the time to look for work, they have the time to do the work, and they have the time to actually contribute meaningfully for a long period of time to the economy.
So what happens to the kids who get into university before 16 or by 16?
Well, with respect to NELFund, because we have to act as a responsible lender, they would not be eligible to sign the loan themselves.
What about locals and parentes? Those, their parent, guardian, can't they help in securing the loans for them?
Well, absolutely, they can. So a parent can, on behalf of their child, enter into a loan agreement. However, it's important to recognize that a parent signing a loan agreement on behalf of their child, the liability or the exposure to that loan is with the parent, because effectively, you can't.
And the parent cannot apply. It can only be the student.
The
beneficiary.
The beneficiary are the ones who can. Their parents can apply on their behalf.
Okay.
However, the loan is then tied to the parents. Okay, but
I got into the university before the age of 16. That's the point I'm making.
I know.
And so
I know exactly
it then
the
means
point
that I wouldn't have been able to benefit if this was my period until maybe 300 level or more.
Well, yes, but you can imagine a situation where you give a loan to somebody who's 16, and then when they're 25, they say, well, I didn't really know what I was doing. And in reality, that would be correct. They're not of age. So why would we, as a responsible...
contractual standards, it's voidable.
It's voidable, and also it's irresponsible lending. We wouldn't want to be in that situation.
I know that as you get along, there will be a review here and there, because there are a lot of, you just see a protest at your door from young Nigerians who say, we also should be able to be part.
Yeah.
But I think it's a novel idea. We need to give kudos to this government for getting this started. Yeah. It will avail a lot of people to get into school and get them education. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Akintola.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank you for having me on your show. And you're absolutely right. This is a novel idea, the president's vision, and I believe that this is going to be a game changer for this country, this great nation, Nigeria.
I wish you the very best. If you need help, just come to us, because we are going to support anything that is good in this country for the interest of our Nigerian people.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All the best, Mr. Sawyer.
All right.
Well, that's our show for today and for this weekend until Sunday, actually, 8 o'clock. God bless Nigeria.